Woke up this morning, it was beautiful blue skies and very light sunshine. And as I told you, I'm more into the winter and the autumn months, but a little bit of sunshine is nice every now and then. And now it's all cloudy again, so I don't know what's going on. It was a lovely sunny morning in Totteridge, and now it's cloudy. Anyway, I think I'm just going to get to the point. And I'm going to talk about a few things today, and I'm going to try and get through these quite quickly. Do you remember Critical K? Does anyone remember Natasha Cooper? And I think a lot of people know who Mrs. Portland is. I'll get on to those in a minute. I'm going to quickly say something about Donald Trump. Has the honeymoon period ended with him? What is this stuff about tariffs on everything, and wanting to take Canada as the 51st state and wanting to buy Greenland? I mean, what? What? Anyway, yeah, since I've been in the Watts community, there's been so many rumors, been so much drama. And recently, remember when Natasha Cooper and Mummy Ramblings, MRB, used to go at each other? Now it seems like it's Country Joe and Amber and a lot of people. But I could not believe it, or maybe I shouldn't be surprised, when I saw that Country Joe had put up on her community post, and I go to Country Joe's channel every now and then. I'm not on there very regularly. As a matter of fact, I can't even find her channel today. So, I dip in and out once in a while. I dip in and out of Lycan's channel once in a while. I dip in and out, but I'm not a mainstay on those channels. Country Joe put up Amber's record, posted a link. I could not believe it. And I shouldn't be surprised. No, I'm not surprised that she posted the link. But I couldn't believe what I saw. Like, to have all that information out there, I don't think anybody would want that. I didn't even know that there was such a site. And I also got the opportunity to see somebody else's record, somebody else who was a part of the Watts community for a while before he disappeared. We all know who he is. I'm not going to mention his name. I just don't feel like talking about him in this podcast. You would talk about his record, and I did check his record on the site, and the amount of mugs that came up was quite interesting. But wow, people really go real life. I also want to touch on some things about AD from my last podcast. I'm not like the big voice on the AD situation. Scott does that, and Val's very popular for doing AD content. So I'm a small voice on the AD stuff now. But I just want to respond to some things that people have asked me about regarding Armchair Detective AD Allen. I also want to say, the Rusek supporters stood by Frankie and the family through thick and thin. And, my relationship with I was once a very, very staunch Rusek supporter. If you were in my channel from the very beginning, you would know that I was once a Rusek supporter, very staunch Rusek supporter. And that all changed with the Claire Morgan stuff and all that kind of stuff. But, the Rusek supporters who stayed and remained loyal despite all that stuff that was coming out, Frankie's photograph being put out there, stuff that was being said about him, they really did stay the course. So, I've got to applaud them for that. I have a better relationship with the Rusek supporters now. Not all of them, but quite a few Rusek supporters and I now get along, and that's, I have a pleasant discord with the Rusek supporters. Not all of them. Some of them still hold it against me that I started to speak about the Claire Morgan stuff, and that's fine. That's absolutely fine. I don't blame some people for holding a grudge. But the Rusek supporters really did stay the course. But I do want to say this. Somebody said to me, why is AD the one that the Rusek family went after when there's other people saying stuff about Shanann? And I have said this myself in the past, that AD was not the worst. I can name at least 2 other creators that went after the Ruseks and did just as much fictional content on the Watts case and what happened as AD, you know, cons theories, I call them. We all know that one in particular that I won't mention in this podcast either, because I don't want to. It wasn't just about Shanann, though. It wasn't just about Shanann. And because we all know we have Miss Mensa, whose channel is basically all about Shanann. It wasn't just about Shanann. AD certainly wasn't the one that was going after Shanann as much as other creators, and like I said, Miss Mensa. It was about the fact that AD had said and insinuated that there was a cover-up and that the Rusex were involved in that. And to me, that's really, really nasty to go and say something like that to a family who have lost in that way. And he tried to perpetuate this myth for a long time. And it wasn't just, I don't think the point about them going for AD was about what he was saying about Shanann. It was about what he was saying about the case and the things he was saying about NK being there and several people being in the basement and perpetuating the myth that the case was still being investigated and then there was other people out there involved that were walking around and that there was this cover-up that the Rusex were involved with. It was all of that the Rusex didn't like. And I don't want to speak for Frankie and I don't want to speak for them, but it's not just about Shanann. It's about taking a case and manipulating it to sell it to an audience, which AD was very, very good at doing. And he had a certain demographic that ate it all up and that believed him and bought into him. I want to get through this quickly and enjoy my Sunday, and I feel like I don't have a lot of time. So yeah, it's also interesting that Donald Trump seems to have an issue with immigrants, and yet his own mother was an immigrant from Scotland, and he married 2 immigrants. It's interesting that, isn't it? I think I read a post by Helen, and she was mentioning that, and I thought it was a very, very good point. You know, he is actually the son of an immigrant himself. What else do I want? So yes, I'm going to get on to Natasha Cooper, Critical K. Some people come to my channel from my old videos that I made on Critical K and Natasha Cooper, and I just want to talk about those things briefly for a second. And I'm going to say this about Mrs. Portland and get it out of the way. I'm not a fan of Mrs. Portland. I've heard her. I actually have videos and recordings of her saying some not nice things about people of different backgrounds. So I've got absolutely no time for her. I don't know why people give her the time of day. I find her to be a very unpleasant person, and yeah, she always, wherever she goes, there's always drama following her for some reason. I just want to say this as well. I watched the Gabby Petito documentary on Netflix. I wasn't going to watch it because there have been so many things put out about the Gabby Petito case, and I just got sick of watching all of them. You know, this happens to a lot of women and they don't get the same amount of coverage. So I kind of was like anti the whole thing, and then I gave in and I watched it, and it was a very, very good documentary. But from the beginning, I'd called what had happened. You know, from the time I heard what had happened and she was missing and everything, I knew what had happened. I knew it. I knew what he did, and I knew what he was going to do to himself. But I do remember Natasha Cooper's channel really covering it. She really covered it heavily, the Gabby Petito case, and her channel went to 50,000 subs. Natasha Cooper's channel, it went up to 50,000 subs when she started covering the Gabby Petito case. She was very, very good at it. You know, I've tried to be fair to Natasha Cooper. One of the last videos that I watched of her was where she was saying she was trying to raise money and she wanted to make a certain amount of money before the live stream was over. And that's when I thought, yeah, this is what she's all about. Money, money, money. And I stopped trying to be objective about her, because that's what I used to do. I used to try and give her a fair shot, you know, a fair chance. And I just think that Natasha Cooper is all about one thing. I don't know where she is now, but people still come to my channel to watch my old videos that I did on her. But I have to give it to Natasha. She is very, very good at gathering a lot of followers and a lot of support. She has that charisma about her. she just has it. You know, she has the gift of the gab. She has charisma, and she's very, very good. You know, if she started a channel tomorrow, she probably would be able to acquire over 1,000 subscribers in a matter of days. That's the type of person, that's the type of charisma that she has. People are just drawn to her for whatever reason. And I also remember AD covering it. He did it for about 2 weeks straight, covering the Gabby Petito case, and it had body cam footage. And you know, AD loves to play with body cam footage. And then he just stopped covering it because when there was nothing more left of the case, when the two people central to the case were no longer here, he stopped covering it immediately. But I remember him covering it for like 2 weeks straight, and he was getting a lot of attention for covering the Gabby Petito case. Another person who covered it was Critical K. And I remember she had 15,000 subscribers by the time her channel was removed because of an associated case that she was covering, and the family did what the Rusek family did with AD. And she lost the case, and her channel was no longer around anymore. But she tried several attempts to come back, and when she did come back, she tried to cover the Gabby Petito case, and she was making up all kinds of stories about Brian Laundrie being in South America, saying that she'd heard from a very respectable source that Brian Laundrie was in South America. Turns out Brian Laundrie never left the country, and that was all a load of nonsense. Then she started putting out these things about herself, about how she was suffering from low self-esteem. And I remember the things that she said about Shanann and the Watts case. And it's not about being critical about Shanann that I took issue with. That's not what I took issue with. It's just the way that she went, the way that she went below the belt, I think, on that case when it came to Shanann. I didn't like, and she has no empathy for anybody. And I do think that Critical K, like Natasha, has a lot of charisma. I think that she's very engaging, and I think that, you know, she knows how to capture an audience. I give her that. She had 15,000 subscribers by the time she was taken down. So she knows how to capture an audience. She speaks very well. She's very engaging. She can hold your attention. But you know, another person that very unpleasant in my opinion. And people have other opinions, and that's fine. This is just my opinion of her. But yeah, the Gabby Petito case was very popular in the Watts community for a time until it wasn't. But the documentary was very, very good, and I learned things that I didn't learn. But I think that relationship was never going to be successful. I think because of the personality type that Brian was, and as the parents, there's so many things I could say about this Laundrie case, that I probably will just keep away from saying right now. But you know, it was just from the time they started that road trip, and they went to some beautiful spots. You know, I've been thinking about doing hiking and doing more walking. There's lovely green parks and gardens where I live here in Totteridge, lots of them. But I would really love to go hiking and doing things like that in the southwestern United States. You know, I'm not an outdoorsy person. I'm not somebody that wants to go camping and do all that kind of stuff. But I really have been thinking about doing hiking and stuff like that. And I would love to hike in California. I would love to hike in Arizona. I'm obsessed with California and Arizona in terms of the mountains and the landscape and the beautiful open spaces that they have and the trails that they have. And I've been watching quite a few hiking videos on YouTube. But sometimes I think I'm probably not brave enough because I'm scared of like mountain lions, bobcats, bears. I'm really afraid of bears. So I probably like the idea of hiking than actually going to do it myself. But, you know, Brian and Gabby, they visited some beautiful places. I think the last spot that they visited was a very, very beautiful place. But, you know, I just see the flags in that relationship from very early on. And certainly by the time they took that road trip, they were literally on the road to nowhere, I think. And I'll just leave it at that for now. I was just about to wrap things up. I thought I was done. And then I realised I hadn't said this. AD must be made to pay. So what I'm saying is, the only way that this is going to set an example for other creators, because right now we've got Zooki running around saying pretty much the same stuff that AD was saying. And AD has quite a large following on TikTok. It doesn't amount to the same type of elevated status that he had when he was on YouTube, regardless of how many followers he's got on TikTok, because YouTube was where he really wanted to be. Short videos, it doesn't do as much for him. He wanted to be on YouTube doing live streams, seeing his membership and his money going up. And he wanted to be doing long videos because you can get a lot of adverts on long videos. Basically speaking, what I'm saying, AD's ideal platform was YouTube. That's where he wants to be. He's not happy just being on TikTok. TikTok is, he's way too old for TikTok anyway. So even though he has a fairly large, or appears to have a fairly large following on TikTok, YouTube is where he really wanted to be. He kind of like goes in and out of Rumble because I don't think his heart is really into it. But he's doing the same thing with other cases as he did with the Watts case and the Gabby Petito case and the Nicola case. So it's not really going to deter him from doing the same thing with other cases if he is not made to pay a hefty sum to the Rusex. That's my opinion. He must be made to pay the Rusex a sum for it to really mean anything and for it to really count. And I don't want to take away their victory. I'm happy for them. But he must be made to pay. Otherwise, it's not going to wait. It's not going to mean as much. It's not going to be worth it as much. A lot of time was spent, a lot of years. He must be made to pay them something substantial.